A recent order from the National Green Tribunal, or NGT, has directed the Central Pollution Control Board, that is CPCB, to recover damages for 10 grave environmental violations in a 30-year-old colony, Sushant Lok, in Gurgaon. Construction rules governing the city say 45% of any residential colony must be left open for green spaces and roads and public utilities. In the case of Sushant Lok, the builder, Ansal API, has been charged with encroachment of green areas, illegal extraction of groundwater, and dumping of untreated sewerage into stormwater drains. Urban Reality today is a straightforward discussion. How rampant are such violations in India's growing cities, and how can builders get away with such daylight robbery unless there is collusion with the state planning authorities, in this case the Haryana Town and Country Planning Department? Before we get to those answers, let's hear from the petitioner on why the residents had to approach National Green Tribunal to get justice for their cause.
We shifted to Gurgaon. I wanted to give a good environment to my family, which is my fundamental right. But to my utter surprise, the entire area was cannibalized. The green areas were taken over. The rainwater harvesting was not there. Sewage treatment plant is not there. And we were in an environment where my parents, my mother was suffering. So most of the violations have been done, and people staying here are having a terrible time.
Mr. Sharma, you've of course gone to the authorities several times on the violations, or did you straight away approach NGT?
No, we've been all over, gone to all kinds of regulators, other judicial forums also, without getting any relief anywhere. We in fact found that we were just getting ignored by the regulators. The Director Town and Country Planning, who is the licensing authority for all of these colonies, may have never ever checked whether the builders were doing these colonies in keeping with the layout plans or doing something, whatever they please to do, and doing something only for profiteering. They've thrown all kinds of plans into the dustbin.
How many times has it been changed? 10 times?
Oh, it's been changed maybe 12, 15 times.
Okay. So there was altogether, you started with some 500 odd acres. Sushant Lok got increased to about 600 acres. 270 acres should have been earmarked for parks, open spaces, and of course roads, right? How much do you think of it has been gobbled up? I know that NGT has ordered a high-powered committee to assess how much has been gobbled up, but what's your own assessment?
So if I look at the original layout and sale rate layout plan that the Ansals had given up in the market in 1986, I find that 50% of the parks have disappeared. Parks have been converted into plots.
And houses are already built on those
houses
plots?
are already built all over the place.
Okay. There were very clearly parks in the original plan, but now they have got cannibalized, like you're saying, and there are plotted developments. It should not be that difficult for the high-powered committee to assess how much of that 270 acres has been gobbled up by the builder Ansal Properties.
Yeah, it can't be something, impossible to achieve. Measurement can be done. Even if they want to come and measure it with a tape, they should be able to do it. But the layout plans do make it obvious that there is significant cannibalization of green spaces that has happened. It's also there, visible to the naked eye, that the green belt has not been developed in the colony the way it's expected to be developed. There is, encroachment all over that green belt in all kinds of ways.
I believe that when you file your RTI, you even discovered that the Department of Town and Country Planning doesn't even have approved plans of Sushant Lok.
Yeah, they did not have anything on their record. And when we told them, listen, you promised to give these plans to us, sir. How are you going to do this? They said, no, don't worry, there are 9 plans, you deposit so much of money per plan, we'll send you copies. I said, but you don't have it in your record, you show them to me today, that's why I've come here, for personal inspection. They said, doesn't matter, Ansals would have it, I'll take copies from them and give them. This is something that a senior official...
What?
Yes.
You mean to say the builder has the only copy of the plans?
Yes, that's what we were told. So that's the way Haryana is regulating.
No, so any number of changes can be made on those plans.
Absolutely.
Is there any sanctity of those plans?
Looks like none. Nobody wants to honor whatever is left in the plan. The colonizer decides. Gurgaon is ruled by those colonizers. They are the ones who decide what they want to do, and nobody to stop them.
What is your own, grouse against the collusion, what I can see, or as the case has shown between the builder and the town development department?
This NGT order, I think, is a wake-up call for the Haryana government. They are planning to develop Gurgaon as a smart city like Singapore, Hong Kong, whatever. They can really make an example of Gurgaon by implementing this order in spirit and in
both letter and spirit. Make an example out of Gurgaon. But this is not only happening in Gurgaon, it's happening all across India, right under the nose of the planning authorities and state approving agencies. Joining me today on Urban Reality are Yatish Goyal, lawyer for Sushant Lok residents who filed the plea in NGT. Also with us, PSN Rao, Director, Delhi School of Planning and Architecture, and Mr. V. Ramaprasad, co-founder Friends of Lake, Bangalore, who will also be joining us. My first question goes to, of course, the lawyer. Mr. Goyal, 10 violations have been found, but more than that, NGT has clearly said there appears to have colluded with the developer, the town and country planning department. That is what worries me. This has been happening over the last 2 decades, and there is clear collusion. I spoke to the director, Mr. Panduranga, and his reaction almost about 18 days post the NGT order was that he had not even seen the order yet.
Yeah, Manisha, actually, the basic question is someone at some point of time needs to take a corrective action. Mr. Panduranga is occupying the highest post in town and country planning department. He is duty bound to take immediate action. NGT has flunked into and NGT has directed all the concerned authorities and has given a clear observation that town and country planning is in collusion. What else is required? This attitude of Mr. Panduranga further substantiate and corroborate the factum that yes, there is a collusion. A 600 acres of land, and to my surprise, when I spoke during inspection, I met Mr. Pankaj Agarwal, who is from Central Pollution Control Board. He said that they don't have the infrastructure to measure the land at site. If they don't have the infrastructure, then why the permissions to develop such a big projects is being given to builders? That makes it clear.
You make a very interesting point. You are saying that despite NGT order, now you have authorities saying they do not even have the infrastructure to map the area, which means that such rampant violation of laws can continue to happen. There is nobody who's mapping it or keeping an eye at all. Here you had Mr. Shashi Sharma saying that when they filed an RTI, they found out that in Chandigarh, there were no approved plans of this location, Sushant Lok, at all. They were hoping that the builder will give them the plans.
Yeah, they are accepting the documents given by the builder. Actually, it should be otherwise. They must having the documents and they must measure it according to the documents available in the department. How they can accept the documents of the builder?
Okay. Tell me one thing.
They are
how
acting at the dictate of the builder.
Is it only Sushant Lok? Can we at least, feel comfortable about the fact that such gross violations are only in Sushant Lok? They're not happening anywhere else in Gurgaon?
No, not at all. Not at all. It is across the board. All the builders. I am making a very responsible statement. I am fighting cases against more than 15 builders. This
for exactly the same violations, sir? You're saying you're fighting against 15 builders on similar violations of eating up green spaces?
Almost. Yeah, they are eating up the green and common area.
Okay.
And when the complaint is made, the most surprising fact is when the complaint is made to the department, town and country planning department, I am sorry to say, They hold a meeting with the builder, they negotiate with them. This is my complaint even to Manohar Lal Khattar. They negotiate with them.
Wow.
The concerned officers negotiate and take bribe.
All right, very
don't
strong
take
statement. Very strong statement. In fact, your complaint becomes a let's say weapon for the officials of town and country planning Haryana to extract their pound of flesh, which is exhort the builders to pay up. Mr. PSN Rao, it is very clear, sir, that these are violations which are happening across, and they cannot happen if the authorities were vigilant, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So here, for once, how do we hold anybody responsible within the planning authorities responsible is my question. Will NGT order do it alone? I don't think so.
Firstly, I must congratulate the learned advocate for taking this up. I think it's a complete failure of the state, particularly the town and country planning department as it appears, and also the other pollution control agencies who are involved. They all were supposed to have acted on time, which apparently they have not. That is the reason why this whole thing has now come up. Unless and until they are brought to book, this thing will continue.
How do you bring them to book is my question. Let me ask Mr. Goyal this. Mr. Goyal, there is an NGT order. It talks about fine. It also talks about demolishing, Sushant Lok. You cannot demolish an area where 10,000 people are staying. How do you bring officers who might have been colluding with the builders over the last 20 years to task? Who will take that call? Who will bell the cat?
Yeah, actually, this is not a difficult thing, because the law has the complete framework to bell those cat who has abused their power and position. Because everything is documented. Nobody can make any excuse. So when the things are available on record, the Prevention and Corruption Act has the clear provisions. But the question is, when the entire local administration is hand in glove, then some person who is heading the state must take serious action.
Okay.
If the persons against whom the observation has been made by the NGT, if they will still deal with this file, then how can we expect that some action is going to happen?
So you have said that unless the person who's at the head of the state government, which I'm assuming you meant the chief minister, takes this in his hands, this is not going to go anywhere. All right, there is also a 2017 Kolivard report. I'm going to bring in Bangalore here for the simple reason that Bangalore also faces that huge big challenge of encroachment of lakes by government. And here the government is also responsible and private agencies on a very, very large scale. Now, we've got our Bangalore guest, Mr. Ramaprasad, who's a co-founder of Friends of Lake Bangalore. Mr. Ramaprasad, we had an NGT order in December 2018 where the Karnataka state was pulled up for its role in not being able to stop encroachment. In fact, being part and parcel of that encroachment, there are several state agencies which have their buildings there. Do you believe that NGT rulings have any teeth in this country?
To my opinion, NGT, very specifically, you can see one of the things, the commissioner of Bangalore city, the commissioner who is supposed to be running Bangalore city, has stated it is a statutory body. I don't have to listen to them. They are not supposed to do anything with the revenue. And today, if you see the court case, which is run by many citizens and other things in the Supreme Court, even there also it is sub judice. Still, I want to tell the questions raised are that whether NGT has any powers to talk about something that is to do with the revenue area, that is the revenue department area. So this has become a big question now. The case is still sub judice in the Supreme Court, so I don't want to comment too much on that. But at the same time, now you will see here, there are three reports. One is, we call it as Lakshman Rao Committee report, which was done in 1987. And then comes the Justice M.K. Patil report, which is a proper judiciary kind of a report. The first report is something to do with the expert people. Second one is a judiciary report. Third is a legislative report. That is a Kolivard committee, which is all parties together have done one more report. There are 3 reports. That means the expert, which is I would call as the expert people. The next one is the judiciary report, which is by M.K. Patil. Then Justice M.K. Patil, and then is the Kolivada Committee report, which is particular legislative report. All of them talking about huge encroachments. I would like to keep the 2 things apart, that there is a public encroachment by lot of things where there are public utilities happening, and there is another one. These all are full lakes and full the arterials. You can imagine Bangalore is a city which depends upon its water sustainability for lakes, or else we'll have to bring it from very far. So with that kind of a situation, now we are into this thing that lakes are vanishing. The reason being, there is in the last assembly, there was of the previous government, they have brought in a particular amendment to the legislation telling that with the chairman's permission of the KTDCA, that is Karnataka Tank Development and Conservation Authority, they can build roads, bridges and allied construction inside the lake. Forget about talking anything else. They are ready to build it, and this one specifically for builders. There are builders who have put up 40-story building, 50-story building, and front of there this thing, the road is just 20 feet road. But they are showing a 100 feet road which crosses right across the lake, and they are claiming that to be their road, and based on that road permissions are given to build the building.
Okay.
And later on, now to build that road, this new legislation has been brought in. And none of the parties, let it be JDS, let it be, none of the political parties have raised a question or raised a finger on this matter.
So, Mr. Ramaprasad, that's exactly what we've been saying. We're saying that, look, if rules are getting violated, someone is allowing these rules to get violated. I mean, we elect a government to keep basic law and order in the country. But here, whether it's state government, I mean, mostly it's state government because real estate is state government, is completely allowing just for money absolute flouting of this norm, as you pointed out, judiciary report, expert report, legislative report. If all of these 3 things are pointed out to big gaps, then what is the solution? Can we ever get back land encroached? How do we stop such blatant corruption? Every Indian city is confronting a crisis on several fronts. You have outdated infrastructure, rising pollution, and falling quality of life. We look at the government we elect to find solutions, to maintain law and order, to make sure that the colonizers or the builders are held responsible if they violate norms. But that's simply not happening. In a recent case where NGT pointed out a gross violation by Ansal API in one of the oldest colonies of Gurgaon, Sushant Lok, we still don't know what the solution is going to be. In Bangalore, you have several reports talking about the collusion between the state government authorities and the builders when it comes to lake encroachment. But is anything happening? So what is the solution? Mr. Ramaprasad, you spoke and you spelled out the big problems. It doesn't matter which political party is in power. No one really cares. And what we are seeing is irreversible damage. Do we have any solutions? What do? You vote for another government. That's not going to change anything.
As a solution, one of the things that many of the citizen lake groups over here, and maybe with the other this thing is that yes, one of the legal, we are planning to take the legal course when legislations are made like this, wherein the legislation itself is made in the assembly and with 23 MLAs sitting over there, not more than that, and legislations are made and none of the other parties want to question the legislation also, and this kind of things goes as a gazette extraordinary, and this has not even come to the public consultation also. So like this, the same thing has happened with the BDA, Bangalore Development Authority started making the whole master plan for Bangalore, and that has been questioned in the court, and now it has to be the MCP, that is the the planning committee under the 74th Amendment Act. So like this, the whole thing is, I only see the solution is awareness among people, awareness among the citizens that what they are losing to this greed of people to make money, people to see to it that their children and everybody is in the state of power, where most of these big builders, we know the collision between the politicians and the builders. And now we are seeing how all this whole thing is done very nicely, wherein they produce document of...
You're saying that other than citizens waking up and saying, reclaiming their cities, their lakes, their waterways, their green spaces, there is no other solution. Mr. Yatish Goyal, I wanted to ask you, this answer to what happens after NGT comes out with an order. Does it have any sanctity, or does it then have to go to Supreme Court? Who needs to actually stop these kind of blatant violations of norms?
Manisha, actually, the NGT's order the NGT was compelled to pass this order. But before that, the NGT has constituted a high-powered committee. My point is, when the high-powered committee found the blatant violations, that high-powered committee must take action immediately. Now, the high-powered committee simply submitted a report. They did not acted on the violation. Then the NGT has given this direction. Now the authorities must act immediately. They must cancel the project. They must prosecute the builder. The examples must be set.
Examples must be set.
And the officers who were, and the officers who are officiating must be suspended, because if the same officers will continue at their post, the action cannot be effective.
All right.
The examples must be set, then only there can be some corrective action.
So the government also has to be held accountable, and this is my big grouse. It's always been. We've seen one case of a builder flouting norms in Noida. They were held accountable by NGT, but the Noida authorities who approved the plan were never held accountable. Dr. Rao, this is the biggest problem. We never hold the government officials or Department of Planning or the approving authority accountable ever. I have never heard of anyone losing their jobs, being fired, suspended, never.
Yes, this is really very unfortunate. Unless and until you take strict action against the erring officers, this thing will continue.
Which then makes me believe, and which what Mr. Ramaprasad said, that legislatively itself it is not implementable, because they themselves are hand in glove.
Because the legislators and the builders and the government officials, they're all hand in glove with each other. So therefore, like he very rightly said, unless and until there is a widespread public awakening and media exposure and all this kind of a thing, I don't think this is going to stop. But ultimately, there has to be a very strict action on the erring officials.
Has School of Planning and Architecture, you were also part of this high-powered committee to go and evaluate. Don't you think that at least the central government can also play an important role? India's top 8 cities, maybe tell the state governments to do a survey and find out how much encroachment has happened of land.
Yeah, of course, that can be done. But then, as you know, most of these are in the realm of the state governments. So the state governments have to actually take up the responsibility. Maybe the central government can do some kind of a funding or whatever. But then that may not really be the solution to the problem.
So it lies at the state government.
Absolutely.
Mr. Ramaprasad, Bangalore at least is a very aware city. I believe that you have been able to stop lake encroachment to quite some extent with all the citizen engagement, isn't it? So that is the key to
we have been fighting in the courts. I am also fighting cases in the court, in the land grabbing court and in the high court and other places where there are people who are not taking. But the funniest thing is the file itself is missing. You can imagine the whole file, the whole village maps, the files, everything is missing. They quote that, in 1972, in 1984 or somewhere a fire happened and the whole file got burnt. Or, the funniest factor that I am seeing is they are coming in. When I have got the file, full file in my hand with an RTI, wherein I have the full file in our hand that it is a lake. And the government comes and tells that the file is missing and we don't have the file. So file cannot be recreated again. And this is the kind of, you can imagine how I have the file. I have written an RTI and 2 years back we have taken all the documents and today they are telling the file itself is missing. So here we are seeing, and then one more thing is, one more case where we are fighting, they are bringing a 1896 document telling that it is more than 100 years old. So now the court doesn't have any jurisdiction to talk about it. It's another big lake, that one is. And these all are commons. I'm telling you, there were commons which we call it as the common grazing land. And if you see all the tech parks, most of the tech parks that are there in Bangalore are on the common lands. How did they get the land? How did this whole land go into their hands? All are being questioned. If you go back, they have done a very nice job. They have really done a nice job. If you go back even to 1975, 71 when the big survey was done, papers are missing, whole survey maps are missing.
Okay, all right. Well, Mr. Ramaprasad, I'm absolutely not at all, surprised at that. The documents are missing, as we discussed, even in Shashank Lok case. the state government does not have any documents of approved plans. So it's only with the builder. In your case, you're saying the citizens have the file, but the government doesn't have the file. Well, I'm going to conclude here, gentlemen. It's a large problem. Yes. We are going to continue to highlight it. Thank you very much for joining me today. Hopefully, the Sushant Lok case will see a natural conclusion of somebody losing their job, the builder also paying for the violation. Otherwise, things are not going to stop. My take, unless we put a complete full stop to the violation of construction norms, both by the government and the builders in collusion with the state authorities, we are heading into a bigger disaster. There's air pollution, urban floods, there's quality of life where we won't have the word quality left in it. And this can only happen with political will, nothing else. Thank you so much for joining me on Urban Reality.